One thing I've never done with any of my Commodore systems is put them online. I have never networked an Amiga. So it's been a while since we built any expansion cards, and a couple of months ago, the usual suspects on Gadget UK's Discord, well, we got together and did a group buy of these. So this little Zorro card, designed by Matthias Heinrichs and Henrik Richter, apologies if I'm butchering your names, but this little Zorro card, this provides IDE, an Amiga clock port, and networking. That is the primary reason why we got together to order these, for its LAN capability. I do have an IDE card in my 2000 already, so we'll probably not use that today. I don't have anything to put into the clock port, so we'll definitely not be using that today. As I say, the main thing I want this for is the LAN side of it. It was actually my turn to order the boards and all the parts for it. We do have quite a bit to put together, so let's just get stuck in. So where shall we start? Well, I typically like to get the difficult bits out of the way first. And certainly for me, the difficult bits is going to be the two ICs, the CPLD and the LAN chip itself. Quite fine pitch soldering. I think we should do those first before we put any other components on here that will just get in the way. I put all this Kapton tape on here just to sort of hold everything in position, so I would know where all the various components have to go. We did get some components fitted by the PCB house, which in this case was JLC. Other board manufacturers are available. And as always, this is not a sponsored video. We do need to do the whole back side of the board, although there isn't that much to put on, just a few surface mount ceramics. But as I say, let's start with the tricky bits, or what I would call the tricky bits anyway. And we may as well do them in order. IC1, that is this part. This is the LAN chip, and it has to go on in that orientation. So yeah, it has been a while. I don't think I have built a card since we did the TF1260 at Amiga Ireland in January. Here's hoping I don't make a mess of this. So I think I've got that chip aligned. We'll drop a bit of flux just onto one corner of it. I'm just going to put a bit of solder on the iron itself. Let's see if we can get even a couple of pins tacked down. Okay, that has made a mess, but that's okay. I just want to inspect the orientation of the chip, and I think it's okay, to be honest. So we'll do the same, say, in this corner. We'll do it again in this corner. I'm going to put on the goggles just to be 100% sure that I'm happy with the orientation, that it is sitting properly. And yeah, it's not bad. So let's see if we can still do this. Flux over the entire side, a dab of solder on the iron, and let's try some drag soldering. Yeah, just the tiniest of bridges there, Glenn. Half the bloody pins are bridged. It is amazing how quickly you get out of practice. But I think we're good now. Just let me inspect it again under magnification. And yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's do this side. And look, I know I'm going to get the usual comments. You need to put a smaller tip on your iron. And yeah, probably do. But I just like using this tip. Another bridge of solder. Okay, happy with that side. Let's do the opposite one. Dare I say, it's all coming back to me. And so can we do the tricky bit? I really haven't left myself any room in here to work. But I think if we go in with the iron at an angle like that, I think we'll just be able to do it just about. And I think that's it done. Cleans up not too bad. Okay, I think I've got it aligned. The alignment on that chip, it probably could be a little better, but I don't think we've any issues really. You know, I don't think we've any legs shorting between two pods or anything like that. It's just ever so slightly off. This though being a bigger package, let's see if we can't get it bang on. Obviously the bigger the package, you have less room for error. So we pretty much need to get this exact. But just the same process again. So we'll try and just get one pin of it. And I think I've got that corner down. So let's try and do one of the opposite ones. The chip did move slightly there, but it's tacked down at that position and at that position. So let's just inspect it to make sure we are happy with its orientation. Yeah, it is pretty much exactly where it needs to be. So let's just get it down. I'll do this side first. Lots of flux. Better looking at it than looking for it. Tin up the iron and here we go. So I think we're good there. Just let me quickly inspect it. Yeah, I think that's okay. The other sides of the CPLD practically just fell on. It's amazing how easy things become when the camera is out of the way. But that is those two done. Just want to finish off the rest of the surface mount stuff. There isn't an awful lot left to do really. There's the voltage regulator, which will go on there. There's a little fuse that goes on there, which just protects the power supplied to the 40-pin IDE connector. And then a few little surface mount ceramics to do on the bottom side. Put this regulator on. So it's pretty well orientated there. Nice big legs on this. Shouldn't pose any problems, he says as it moves. That's it back in position now. And we do need to solder down that tab at the back of the regulator. That is the ground. Let's do this fuse next. I'll do this slightly different though. Just going to tin up one of the pads first. Then grab this in the tweezers. Melt that solder and offer this up. Just apply a bit of pressure to the top of it, and then if we remelt that solder again, it should hopefully snap down into place. Yeah, there we go. Not the prettiest looking on this side, so just a little bit of flux there. And that tidies it up. To the bottom of the board, we have these ceramics that go there. And then these slightly smaller ones, which all go there. So it's just through-hole stuff then. We have the 40-pin IDE header. Then we'll do the clock port. We'll do this socket next, which is for some flash memory. Goes on in this orientation, as denoted by the outline on the silk screen. So we need to make a decision now. Do we fit the RJ45 socket? Granted, yes, that is actually the wrong socket, but you know, whatever. The data pins of it, they still fit. But we need to make a decision. Do we fit that to the board here? Or do we make use of this breakout board and fit that there? The idea then being that you fit this socket there, that one there, and run a ribbon between them. That just lets you have this presented on the back of the case. Or in fact, you know what? I have a few of these spare. So why don't we just fit it there as well? I'm not sure if I bought enough. I'll certainly not run out of these anytime soon. But just as per my usual method, put a jumper block on top of it. Use that as a means to hold everything in place. Well, that's it all together, but I do wonder if our ribbon cable is a little bit too long. Although we'll worry about that later. You'll notice that I've also came up with this bracket just to mount the breakout board. That should hold that nicely in the back of the case, and it's black just to match the case itself. But before we do go installing this, we do need to program a couple of things. We need to program the CPLD and the flash ROM. For the CPLD, we do that from this point here, the JTAG header. Now, I would normally do this with my Raspberry Pi, that I have it all pre-wired here for the likes of Live2's boards or the Terrible Fire boards. But the layout of things here is slightly different. And so what I think I might do is just solder in those two rows there, those two rows of pin headers just at the JTAG location. I think we'll solder those on just because the wiring here is slightly different. We do need to take wires to both rows. Cable's all hooked up, that's it ready for programming, so let's connect to the Pi. We'll browse to the XE3 software, and let's see if this works. And it's lan.jed. Yeah, that seemed to work fine. I think that's the first time I have ever successfully done that on the first attempt. The other thing we need to do then is program this, the flash ROM. We can't do that using the TL866, although that doesn't quite fit in there. So I made one of these. Yes, I know it looks like I have squashed a couple of spiders, but no, this should be a PLCC32 to DIP32 converter, or well, should I say straight pass through. So we'll stick that in there. And that goes in there. So I selected our flash ROM here. It's an AM29F010. We can blank check it. And yeah, device is blank. So let's load the bin file. This is it here. And I need to say thank you to Screamo from Gadget UK's Discord for finding this for me. I'm possibly going blind, but I cannot find that on the GitLab page. But this is it anyway, so we'll open that, device and program. Simple as that. Now I just need to get this out of here. And we'll put it in here. So just one last thing before we can actually test it. We need to close a couple of these jumpers. And again, another thank you to Screamo for showing me where we need to close these, because again, I cannot find this information in the GitLab. Although it is very possible I'm looking in the wrong place. So we need to fit one over that, which is just labeled JP1. Not really sure what it's doing, but we apparently need it to be closed. Definitely need to close this next one here. It's labeled auto config. It would be nice just to plug this in and it sets itself up. We don't need to worry about that one, which is IDE disable or IDE off as it's labeled there. Because we may as well try and test what we can on this. We may as well test the IDE. And we also don't need to worry about that one. Now there are two solder jumpers. There's one in that position, SJ1, and there's actually another one in here underneath this, SJ2. But again, we're not sure what they do. Screamo doesn't have those closed on his card and it all seems to work fine. So let's just leave it like that. Let's get it in the Amiga and let's see what it does. So I think the easiest way to test this initially is let's remove the IDE card that is in here at the minute. And we'll just fit this, connect up the IDE and see if it boots. So I'll go in there, put that in there. Monitor on, And does it work? I think it's booting. I can see the activity LED on the top of the case. It's flashing. Yes, it's booted Workbench. The IDE side of that's working at least. Fantastic. In fact, if we go into the Files, Apps, and just run sysinfo, if we look here under Boards, there is 302 devices, and that will be our new card, because it's the only 02 card in here, and it's got three things, hasn't it? It's got the IDE, the clock port, and the LAN. And speaking of LAN, let's see if we can't get this Amiga online. Yes, it's 10 days later, and despite my best efforts, I cannot get my Amiga online because I cannot get this thing to talk to my router. And it seems that there may be two problems. The first one is definitely my own doing, because this RJ45 jack, this is the wrong part for this board. That jack, that was just a bog standard thing, much like you'd find on an old ISA network card. But the one thing that you'll find on here that isn't on this is one of these. This transformer here, that sits in between the LAN chip and the RJ45 jack. I'm not entirely sure what it's doing, but let's just say it facilitates the communication between the LAN chip, the jack, and your switch or router or whatever it is. This card doesn't have a separate one of those. Rather, the RJ45 jack that this is meant to use is meant to be one of these, a mag jack. This has that transformer built into it. Now, those other old jacks, they were just a couple of pence each. These ones are £5 each. So we will just be fitting one of these, and we'll be fitting it to the breakout board. But the other potential issue is with the LAN chip itself. Those LAN chips came from AliExpress because that was by far the cheapest place that I could find them. But when running Roadshow on the Amiga, which is a TCP IP stack, when running that, it reports the MAC address of these LAN chips as all zeros. These things are all meant to leave the factory with a pre-programmed MAC address. It should not be possible to get one of these with a MAC address of all zeros. In fact, is that illegal? I'm not 100% sure, but I have a feeling that it might be. And so my theory anyway is that these are rejected chips, rejected before they would have got to the stage in the factory where they would have been programmed with a MAC address. And so my connectivity issues may not only have been caused by me ordering the wrong jacks, but there may also be a problem in the LAN chip. Now, using version 2.1 of the driver for this card, it is possible to spoof your own MAC address, but when I tried to do that, it still didn't work. So we'll start off by fitting the proper mag jack. As I say, we'll just fit it to the breakout board. We'll try it again in the Amiga at that. And if it still doesn't work, then we'll try swapping out the LAN chip. The 5 I bought originally cost just a few pounds from AliExpress. I think it was £4 odd, something like that. The replacements that I do have here from DigiKey, those are £5 odd each. So for the 5 cards that were ordered, the LAN chip and the Ethernet ports for all of them that I got originally were probably about £5. Whereas the replacements here is about £50 worth. I suppose it does partly come back to that old saying, you get what you pay for. And I know certainly from my point of view, I'll think very carefully before ordering any more ICs from AliExpress. When it comes to these jacks though, well, that was just my own stupidity. Because the BOM, or the bill of materials, does call for this particular mag jack. I just didn't read it properly first time around. As you can see, this jack is the proper footprint for this breakout PCB. But I have a feeling that my bracket is no longer suitable. Yeah, I'll need to redo that. But more importantly, does it now work? So let's get this fitted in the Amiga. I have everything pre-configured here. The driver is set up to spoof a MAC address onto that card. Roadshow, the TCP IP stack that I'm using, it's all set up for a static IP address. And we can run this little bit of software, Roadie, which is like a little front end for Roadshow. Roadshow itself is all just text-based. Show net status, and that's confirming the IP address that I set, the default gateway and the name server. We can get net status, and again that's showing us that everything we need is configured properly. So can we ping the router, which is at address 192.168.2.1? No. 3 packets transmitted, 0 packets received, 100 packet loss. Should I not say 100% packet loss? But yeah, it seems as though this still isn't working. Lights are on though, just nobody's home. So is the problem going to be this LAN chip? Well, it was certainly looking that way, but talking to Gadget UK earlier, he's building his at the same time that I'm building this. And Chris has been having similar issues to me, although he went and bought himself the proper mag jack. Didn't have to do that, I have one here to send him, but whatever, he went and got it anyway. And he sent me a message earlier on today to say that he got his working by closing Solder Jumper 2. So before I go to the hassle of trying to swap that out, let's just try and close that. Will that magically fix it? Now, worth noting that I have tried this before, but at that time I didn't have the mag jack, it was just the other jack, which itself is non-compatible with this card, so I suppose it was never going to work until we got that fitted. But does closing Solder Jumper 2 make the difference? Yep, still not working, so let's just take this out and fit one of these. It might just be the case, you know, that some of these work, some of them don't. The one that I sent to Chris originally, his obviously does seem to work. I'm not discounting the possibility that I'm still doing something wrong. Maybe I have something set up wrong in Roadshow, but I don't think so. So let's just swap out this dodgy chip. Will it work now? Since that new LAN chip should have its own pre-programmed MAC address, I did boot the Amiga first and remove the configuration file from the driver that spoofs the MAC address onto it. In fact, I also just reset everything on Roadshow, changed it all back to DHCP. And you know what? I haven't seen that activity before there. Is this working? It might be. So I've moved you over to direct capture here. Roadie, is it working? And would you look at that? I think it is, because we have an IP address, 192.168.2.4, and where else would the Amiga have got that other than from my router? Let's try and ping the router. Oh yes. Oh yes, it's working. It is working. 3 packets transmitted, 3 packets received, 0 packet loss. We have an Amiga online, or well, connected to my LAN anyway. It's connected to my router. I don't see why it wouldn't be online though. Let's run iBrowse, the Amiga web browser, and yes, this is just a demo version, but assuming this all works, I will be buying the full version. iBrowse, I think, is the most up-to-date browser for the Amiga. If anyone knows any different, please let me know. And what website should we go to? I think the obvious one would be Aminet. And would you look at that? It's working. It's working. What? I have an Amiga on the internet. Mind blown. Boom. So yes, it is just the internet. You've been there before, calm down a bit. Let's try and download something. How about an image? Something simple. Let's try and download a new background for Workbench. And there's one there. Will it download? Yeah. Perfect. How do I save it to the disk? Right click. Download image. Just stick it in there. On my files drive in the images drawer. And let me see if I can just change the background image to that. Of course I can. Prefs. Pattern. Fantastic. My Amiga is online. I need to go and lie down or something because it's online. Last thing to do then is fit the new bracket to this breakout board. I found a couple of nice little self-tapping black screws. I'll just hold it in place. I think that worked out really well. I'll leave a link to this bracket down in the video's description. You can download it from Thingiverse. Then we just need to get it in the case. So I've got to remove this CF adapter here. I've never actually used this in this machine. And I suppose now, if anything, it's redundant because I can just use the network to copy files across to it. Now yes, the ribbon cable is a bit too long, isn't it? But I think we could just tuck it in there underneath the card itself. Yeah, that looks okay. In fact, just a little bit of double-sided sticky tape in there would just hold that nicely against the bottom of the case. Just like that. Plug in the network cable and just put the side back on. Well, there we are. I finally have an Amiga online. It's only taken me 30 years of Amiga ownership to get here. And honestly, I can't tell you how happy I am to see a web page on my Workbench desktop. There's iBrowse. There's amiga.org. We use the internet every day, but seeing it on my Amiga, I can't get over it. It is fantastic. I should have done this years ago because not only is it internet access, it'll also make it a lot easier for me to transfer files from my Windows machine across to this one. So yeah, really pleased with the little card that we built. But it doesn't only do LAN, it's doing IDE and the machine is booting to its IDE hard drive using that card. And it also has a clock port. So any recommendations for what devices I can attach to that? I suppose since this is in a modern case with USB ports on it, maybe I should look at some USB adapter for the clock port, or is there anything else you could recommend? In terms of things to take away from this video, well, I suppose one of the main things we learned today was to more carefully read a bill of materials and don't buy ICs from AliExpress. Because if I had read the thing right in the first place and just bought that LAN chip from DigiKey or Mouser or whoever, well, odds on the thing just would have worked first time. We wouldn't have had all that mucking about. But let's not complain too much, shall we? It's working now. And as I say, I am so excited to have an Amiga online. I purposely didn't cover the setting up of Roadshow in this video, the TCP IP stack. I'm going to save that for another mini video. We'll set that up in one of those. But until then, and for now, that's it for this one. So if you enjoyed what you've seen, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Why not hit subscribe if you haven't done so already? Still plenty more yet to come here on CRG, and I'll see you next time.